بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. So in the last class in Greater Sins, we were talking about the term Ulul Amr, which is, we're still in section of first greater sin about Shirk. And he's saying that Allah has commanded us to obey certain people in the Quran, and our obedience is linked to certain people, but it's because Allah delegated that obedience to those people, and obeying them is like obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have in Quran, it says, if you love Allah, then follow me. The Prophet is telling the people that to follow him, because Allah is telling people to follow him, and that will get them to the straight path. So we left off on page 48. He says, numerous books of Sunnis as well as Shia record traditions that the Ulul Amr are the 12 Imams. And he was saying that some Sunnis, they take this ayat of Ata'iyullah wa atiyu Rasul wa ulul amr minkum, Surah 4, ayah 59, obey Allah and obey the messenger and those in charge with authority amongst you. That some Sunnis commentators have said that this ayah is referring to all rulers, and where the Shia have said, no, these are specific people that we are to obey, not just anyone who comes and rules over the Muslim nation. And we have to go back and refer to what Prophet said about these things. So we see that Jabir ibn Abdullah Ansari, he reports, I asked Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi that I know Allah and his Prophet, but I don't know the Ulul Amr. So this ayat came, and he went to the Prophet because it says, obey Allah and obey the Prophet. He's like, okay, I know this is very clear. And it says, Ulul Amr minkum. Who are these people? Who are these ones in the charge of authority amongst them? The Prophet replied, these are my caliphs, Ya Jabir, and imams of the Muslims after me. The first of them is Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, then Hassan, then Hussein, then Ali ibn al-Hussein, then Muhammad ibn Ali, known in the Torah as Al-Baqir. You will meet him shortly, talking to Jabir. So when you meet him, convey to him my salam. Then after him, Ja'far ibn Muhammad, Musa ibn Ja'far, then Ali ibn Musa, and then Muhammad ibn Ali, then Ali ibn Muhammad, then Hassan ibn Ali, then my namesake, and one having my kunya. He said, they are the decisive argument of Allah on this earth and the mainstay of his religion among mankind. The last of them is the one whom Allah will give victory over the east and of the earth and the west. And it is he who will disappear from his Shias and friends, a long concealment during which no one will remain firm in the belief of his imama except those whose hearts Allah has tested for faith. So we see here that Holy Prophet has listed and named all of them. We have these people who come and say, oh, if they're so important, why are their names not mentioned in Quran? Why does Allah not specifically say, follow Ali ibn Abi Talib, alayhi salam? Why doesn't he say Hassan, Hussein, for example, Imam Rida, alayhi salam? Why doesn't he mention them in Quran? The Quran is a book of general principles. It doesn't give specifics. Quran says, establish salat and pay zakat. But does Allah tell you how many rakat to make in salat, what to say in each position, the exact timings of all things? Does he say that, okay, what happens if you have doubt in salat? No. It says establish zakat. Does it tell you what things to pay zakat on, how much to pay zakat, all of these things? No, these things are left for Prophet to explain. This is why we have Quran and we have Hadith. So Quran mentions general principle, says follow ulul amr minkum. Okay, we have to go back to Prophet and get the specifics of these things. So if Allah were to mention all of these specifics of every single thing in Quran would be many volumes. So we have to go back to Rasulullah, and this is where we see that we have traditions specifically naming them, like this from Jabir ibn Abdullah Ansari. The hadith, it continues, He says, Jabir asked, will his Shias derive benefit from him during his concealment? Talking about Imam Zaman, Ajallah Ta'ala Farajuhu Sharif. The Prophet replied, yes, by him who raised me up with prophethood, verily they will obtain light from his nur and will benefit by his walayat during his concealment, like people derive benefit from the sun when it is covered with clouds. So we see that we do have narrations that mention them, and we do have narrations that mention the ghaiba of Imam Mahdi, Ajallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, specifically from our Prophet. And we have many other proofs and riwayat from Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. So the author said, so it can be concluded that from this tradition that the obedience of the holy Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam is equivalent to the obedience of Allah. Because we said that they are linked, they are linked by wow, meaning that they have the same authority. Obey Prophet and these. There's no exceptions after this. And it's not a different type of obedience that is mentioned, but they are the same. Obeying Ahlul Bayt is like obeying Holy Prophet, which is in terms of obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, those more interested in more details can refer to the book Ghayatul Maram. In the 59th chapter of this book, 4 traditions from Sunni sources and 14 from Shia sources are mentioned. In the same book, in the 121st chapter, 4 traditions from Sunni books and 28 from Shia sources are recorded. So like I said, we have many other sources, even from Ahlul Sunnah, and we see that the author brought one of these, which is one of the main ones for brevity. He said, now we can say during the major occultation, the obedience of a qualified mujtahid is also compulsory. His obedience is actually obedience of Imam Zaman alayhi salam. Imam says, look carefully at those people who relate our traditions with deliberation upon our permitted and prohibited things, and know our precepts and commandments. Select one of them for referring to, since I have appointed such a person for the said task. If this verdict is rejected, then it is as if the command of Allah is deemed light and our ordinance is refuted. Certainly the one who refutes our ordinance has refuted the ordinance of Allah. Verily such a person has stepped into the boundary of Shirk. This recorded in Al-Kafi by Sheikh al-Kulaini. So we see that if someone, a qualified scholar, they have spent their life studying and learning about Ahlul Bayt, and they meet all the criteria of a just mujtahid. They have the level of knowledge, they are just, they are telling you what Allah and Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam has said. Because this task, it is good for everyone, but not everyone can achieve this task. Many people are busy, they are working, they cannot dedicate their days and nights to studying and reaching level of ijtihad where they can derive the rulings from their sources. So we go to the experts in this. The same way as in medical field, not everyone can become a doctor. They have ability maybe, but they have not embarked on that task. So when we get sick, we don't say, okay, I think I have this, I think I have that. Let me go to the pharmacy and I just pick a medicine and I think this one works. No, we go to the experts in that field and we say that, okay, this is our symptoms. What should we take to get better? Because they dedicated their lives into finding which medicines work for which ailments in the body. The same thing with car. We go to mechanic when our car is broken. If it's something that's not very obvious to us to fix, and it's something complicated, we need to take it to an expert. So if this is for things in this world, what about our spiritual realm? We need to go to people who have studied and who know these things. And if they are telling you exactly what Quran is saying, what Ahlul Bayt is saying, and saying Allah says this in Quran. Ahlul Bayt, we have narration that I have found in this book in Ahlul Bayt. For example, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam has said this. This is what you should follow. And then someone says, no, I don't follow that. I follow whatever I want and I do my own research and I come to my own conclusion, and they reject what the person is bringing them. Then this is the same as rejecting Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, because these Maraja, they are not just pulling things out of their pocket and saying, here, I think this is, just take this answer. They should not do that. They are giving you based on their experience of their readings, of their studies of narrations. So if we reject those, this will say that we are not going to ulul amr minkum anymore, because we are rejecting what Ahlul Bayt is saying relayed by these Maraja, and we are taking a different course. So we're not following those who Allah has placed in obedience to, and we are choosing our own way of following our own nafs. So this is why he is saying someone is stepping out of into the boundary of shirk, because they are obeying, they are rejecting those Allah has appointed, which is Ahlul Bayt, and those who are relaying this message of Ahlul Bayt, and they are choosing whatever they want to. A lot of people who do this, they say, oh, I can just follow the books on my own. And a lot of times I've run into these people, they cannot even read the books on their own, and they don't even know the language well enough, or they don't know the language at all. And they're saying, I can derive the rulings from the sources. Yes, the books are there, but they don't know the books. In order to be a mujtahid, they also need to be a mujtahid in Arabic grammar. If we can say, they need to know whether this verse or this riwayat, is this specific, or is it in general? Is it absolute, or is it limited to certain cases? Many different things they need to know. He says one of the conditions of a faqih is that he should be free from worldly desires. He should not be in pursuit of material benefits and worldly honor. The faqih or jurist who is free from such weaknesses is fit to be followed, even if there are people more pious and performing good deeds than him. In this regard, the great scholar Sheikh Ansari quotes tradition from Imam Hassan al-Ashqari alayhi salam in his book Ihtijaj. Says, among jurists, fuqaha, those who protect themselves from sins, guard their religion, defy their carnal desires, and are obedient to their master, it is incumbent upon the people to follow them. Such characteristics are found only in a few of them and not all of them. So we may have someone who, one who has knowledge. We have two people who have knowledge, for example. One of them is very pious, very polite, very good akhlaq. The other person, he also has knowledge, but he has no akhlaq. He has the knowledge, he can answer your question, but he has a rude mannerism, and he is not, you can tell that he is not putting these things so much into practice because of the way he is behaving. Maybe he has racism, he speaks bad about other people, or maybe he is rude in general to people, and he does not have the mannerism of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, not like a follower of them. It's better for us, even both of these have knowledge, we should follow the one who is more pious. The author, he says about, we're talking about those Allah has given authority to obey. He has given us authority to obey Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, and then we see that we also should obey the scholars who relate the traditions from Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. And also Allah has told us to obey our parents. He says obedience to parents is obedience to Allah. To obey parents and to not cause them any kind of distress or discomfort is of extreme importance. We know that paradise lies at the feet of the mother. We have tradition mentioning this. He said this importance can be judged by the fact that in the Holy Quran, Allah's command to serve him is immediately followed by his command to treat parents with gentleness and humility. In Surah 17, ayat 23, 24, and 24, he says, and your Lord has commanded that you shall not serve any but him, and do good to your parents. If either of them reach old age with you, say not to them so much as uff. nor chide them, and to speak to them a generous word, and make yourself submissively gentle to them with compassion, and say, O my Lord, have compassion on them, as they have brought me up when I was little. They said that the word uff is used here because there is nothing less than this word. This something is uff. So, and if Allah has forbidden us to say uff, then it necessitates that anything greater than uff is also forbidden for us to say to our parents. So we shouldn't, when our parents tell us to do something, we shouldn't go, oh, well, no, not again. I got to do this thing. I want this thing, and complain. We have to think about what our parents have done for us and how they have, we see that Imam Sajjad alayhi salam in about the rights of the mother. He has mentioned many things, but he says that the mother prefers to be in the sun while their child is in the shade. Parents, they prefer to go hungry while the child has food. They prefer to have less or less, quality clothing than and let their child have better quality clothing. Many things as sacrifices parents have done for their children. It says it should be known that the parents are not an absolute authority upon all the affairs of haram and halal. Their authority is restricted by the dual dictum that they must not prohibit a wajib thing and nor should order something haram. If a situation demands the parents have to be disobeyed in absolute obedience to the command of Allah and His Prophet. Because we mentioned earlier that Allah commanded us to obey ulul amr minkum, which are Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, with no restrictions. It didn't say unless they do this or unless they do that. So it necessitates that whoever those people are, Allah has commanded us to obey them unconditionally. They must be ma'soom. They cannot do sins. But in case of the parents, we see that Allah told us in Surah 29, Ayat 8, and we have enjoined on man goodness to his parents. And if they contend with you that you should associate others with me, of which you have no knowledge, do not obey them. To me is your return, and I will inform you of what we did. So we see that obedience to the parents comes with a condition, that they don't tell you to do something haram, and they don't tell you to commit shirk. If your parents come and tell you drink alcohol, then you think, okay, Allah has told me to obey my parents, but my parents are telling me to do something that Allah has forbidden me to do. Now you have two commands. Allah has told you to stay away from alcohol, but He has also told you to obey your parents. You have to disobey your parents in this regard and not drink alcohol. If you were to drink alcohol, you would be going against the command of Allah. This is what Allah has made condition, because parents are not ma'soom. They may tell their child to do something. We see that some parents tell their children to take off hijab, for example, or to buy them alcohol or something, anything that is haram. Or maybe someone's parents are telling them that they should worship Jesus Christ, Prophet Jesus alayhi salam, as God, or as take him as son of God, na'udhu billah, because maybe one of their parents are Christians. Does this mean we have to obey them? No, because we have condition here that if they tell us to do this, don't obey them. He says obedience to parents is highly stressed so that they may not be caused even the slightest discomfort by the obedience of their children. It is totally prohibited by the Quran. Thus, if the disobedience of the parents would incur their wrath, then it is compulsory for the children to obey them. So he talks about it here. He says, sometimes the parents may disallow something in order for their children to do something. But if the child does not obey, they are not angry. In such cases, it's permitted for the child to follow his choice. For example, the parents refrain their son to proceed on a journey that would cause hardship, but they do not mind if he insists on it. In this case, it is mubah, or it's neither recommended or discouraged for the son to go on this journey. So they don't really want him to do that, and they give him advice. But they say, okay, it's up to you. Son, we don't want you to travel from, for example, New York to California. It'd be very difficult. You have not been on a journey like this before, and we worry about you, and we don't think it's a good idea. But if he does it anyway, they're okay. They're just giving some advice. In this case, he can obey his parents, or he can go and do it anyway. He can go if they don't mind. They just advice. He says, however, if this journey would cause the anger of one's parents, it is a journey of sin. And during this journey, one has to pray his salat as full, not as qasr, and also observe obligatory fasts. The ruling of qasr, of traveling and shortening your prayers and your leaving your fast, does not apply to one who goes on a sinful journey. So if this trip that this child does, it will cause stress and pain to his parents and anger, and will anger the parents, is forbidden for him to go. He shouldn't go. And if he does go anyway, then he has to complete his prayers. We have a narration about this from about Imam Rida alayhi salam, that two people came to him and they were asking him about qasr prayers and fasting. And he asked the person, why is your intention of coming here? One of them said, I have come to ask you some questions and clarify some things and get some advice from you. The other one, he said, I have came to visit the ruler of the time and about some other things. And he told the one who came to visit him that his journey is lawful, that he should pray qasr, for example. But the other one, he has committed a journey of sin. He is going to do some haram thing, and that he has to complete his prayers and not pray qasr. So if someone is traveling, for example, and they are going to, let's say they are going to Las Vegas with the intention of going there to gamble and to drink and to do other haram thing, he cannot pray qasr. He has to pray tamam, or full prayers in that time. But if a person is traveling to Las Vegas to go to Islamic Center, for example, that is there, or they're going to that area to visit some of the nice mountains or some of those natural things outside, then his journey is permissible. So it goes down to the intention of the person. So we should not harm our parents' feelings. If we know this thing would anger our parents, then we shouldn't do it. Then he mentions some other things about, he says that, for example, Allah has commanded the wife to obey the husband and certain situations. And he goes and he talks about referring to the unjust ruler. He said, so far we have seen that obedience to Allah is obligatory, and so is the obedience to the Holy Prophet and his 12 successors and whoever else Allah has ordered us to obey. Their obedience is also a must. It is absolutely haram to appeal for justice in the courts of the unjust rulers. Referring to them is the same as seeking help from shaitan. Whatever benefit is derived through such cases is also haram, even if one is the rightful claimant. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, if one files a suit of law in the court of a ruler, even if the plaintiff is on the right, his claim would tantamount to his making shaitan his judge. And whatever he gets through his judgment is haram, even though it was from his rights. And the ayat, Surah 4, ayat 59 says, if you quarrel about anything, refer it to Allah and his messenger. So this is in the case in a Muslim country, for example. They are living there, they are under the Hakam Shari, the just ruler or the judge who goes to decide their cases. But they said, no, I'm not taking this to this ruler. And let's say, for example, I am living in Iran, for example, and I have a judge who is judging, or a mujtahid who is judging by Quran and Ahlul Bayt, the narrations and all of the rules and things that are supposed to be done. And the person says, no, I'm not going to him. I am going to go back to America, and I will do something here and file against you here. And they have, maybe they take them outside of the country and they have the access to the person there, but they choose to go to another country and bring it to an unjust judge. They shouldn't do that. But as for cases of those living in the West, it's different. For some cases, for legal reasons, we have to go to these courts for divorce, for example, and other things. In some cases, it would be good to consult with one's marja and ask them for permission about how to proceed in this way. So for these type of things, we should resort back to our marja. But we have to take the mind of the author in this book, that he is living in Iran and he is writing this book in Farsi for Iranian people, or for Farsi speaking people, and those people are living in these countries. So he's saying they should not take these cases outside of this place. He says, like it is prohibited to seek the counsel of the unjust ruler, even if one is on the right, in the same way, it is not allowed to seek religious advice from the scholars who pursue material wealth and worldly honor. The qualifications of a faqih have been mentioned in the foregoing pages. Anyone who does not fulfill these qualities is not to be followed. It is haram to refer to them. And he mentions some narrations. So maybe maybe we have this, that someone reaches the level of a marja, but they have the knowledge, but for example, they are not sincere, or they are doing things not for sake of religion, but for sake of getting money, for example, taking khums, or they want to reach this level so they can take money from people. Maybe they reach this level because they want to be remembered in this life. And that's all they will have, a worldly remembrance, but there will be nothing for them in akhirah if their sole intention or was just to seek some position, to say, I want people to remember me as a scholar. What will they gain from all of that? Nothing. The intention doesn't matter if people recognize you as scholar or not scholar. The intention is seeking nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the path of Ahlul Bayt, by following them and going after their example, not to seek worldly honor and prestige and name and these things. So it's not lawful for, if we know someone like this that is a scholar, but all they are after is chasing dunya, and they don't care, and they bend their fatwa to please whoever they are there, or they change their speech for one audience to another audience. They tell when they're around one group of people, they just try to please that audience and say whatever will make them happy. And then they go to another audience and they say what will make them happy, which is the opposite from the other one. These people just are shape-shifting. They are changing their opinions, flip-flopping from one thing to other thing. And it's not for seeking truth, it's just to appease people and seek honor from people and get invitations from people. The true scholar will say the truth no matter what, if people like it or they don't like it. I remember I gave a speech about death one time, and a brother came to me after, said, wow, this is very difficult. A lot of people don't like the Maulana to talk about death. And I said, it makes them very uncomfortable. And I said, well, my job is not to make you feel comfortable. My job is to make you feel uncomfortable sometimes, because when you feel uncomfortable, you will change. It will stir something in you. I need to get myself together. But if you just hear what's pleasing for you, then you think you're on the right way all the time, and there's no change. We have to, sometimes get uncomfortable with and think about ourselves. When we read a book and it says, oh, wow, this thing is speaking to me, maybe I'm doing this thing. For example, I gave a lecture one time about being thankful to Allah, and what the difference between shukr, thankfulness, and kufr, being ungrateful. And after I get done, this guy came to me and he said, maybe I am a kafir. And I was like, no, don't say that. He said, I'm not grateful for anything. And I never thought about it before. I never realized how ungrateful I was for all of the things I had until I came tonight and I listened to this talk, and now I'm thinking, maybe I am ungrateful. Maybe I do need to change and start being grateful for things. So we have to say things. We cannot be like those who say, if I say that, maybe they won't invite me anymore. Maybe they won't like me. Maybe they won't call me. Maybe they won't give me anything or something like this. Then those people are following the whims of the crowd. They just, whatever the crowd wants, they just give them that. But we have to look at people and see what they need, not what they want, but what they need. And just like the doctors, they give medicine. The medicine is not sweet all the time. Sometimes the medicine is bitter. Sometimes it makes you feel sick. Sometimes you don't like it, but you need to, take that medicine in order to get better. So the same thing with some of the speeches. Sometimes the speech needs to, it might be bitter for some, but that is what makes the change. So that not to seek after dunya. If we find the scholar who is just seeking after dunya and people's pleasures and just saying things to get a, wah wah, or these things that people praising them, and then we should know that we should not refer to them and go after them. We should go through someone who has piety and justness. He says, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he said, when you see a religious scholar in love of this world, don't consider him religious. Certainly one who loves an object, his condition and disposition is like that of his beloved. It means that one who loves this world will not care for the hereafter. We cannot have this idea, the thing that everyone who is wearing an amama is, a pious or great person. We have to look at them and analyze their actions and see how they are. Are they just saying these things and having knowledge, or are they acting by these things and trying to live their life in a good way? It says, Allah revealed upon Dawood alayhi salam, O Dawood, do not make an alam, an intermediary between you and me, who is involved in the love of this world. He will hinder you from my path, and he will make you a worshiper of this world like himself. Certainly such ulama or scholars are bandits who lie in the way of, who waylay the people approaching my abode. The least that I would do to them is that I shall remove from their hearts the love of conversation with me and the sweetness too. So we have to be careful of some people who will just push us towards dunya, and they don't care about the spiritual well-being of our self or of their self either. I have myself met people who have went to study and they had bad idea. They had bad intentions, and tried to talk to them, but they have bad intentions. And a lot of those people, they didn't make it far because their intention was not good, and they were after other things, either to become famous or to have people remember them as being somebody important, or even some people maybe are going just after money or dunya. And we have to be careful for people with bad intentions, no matter if they claim to have knowledge or not. Imam Bakr alayhi salam, he said that if one obtains knowledge in order to become conceited, or to argue with the foolish people, or to obtain wealth, or to attract people towards himself, then he has certainly made the fire his abode. Verily, acquisition of wealth is not permitted but for one's own family needs. One has to have the pure intentions in studying, to seek nearness to Allah, and while teaching, his intention is to help people come to the path of Allah and to increase their understanding of Allah, his Prophet, and Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. This is the intention, to seek nearness to Allah and to generally care for people and their outcome. When they see someone going on the wrong path, it hurts them. They want to help guide them. They want to help build a community and shape a community, not just coming for someone to praise them. I remember watching one scholar, and he's like, it was interesting. It was in Urdu, but I was there, so I listened. And the guy, he tell them, you give me a wah wah. So he has a wah wah wah. And he said, you didn't say wah wah the whole majlis. You point them out. You tell me, give me wah wah. Praise him. And then he make a point on Mimbar, and he goes, no one is appreciating my lecture. No one is giving me wah wah. No one understand my point. Why did you even call me here? I don't want you, why did you bring me here? I'm going to leave. You don't like my lecture. And he goes and gets up off the mimbar like this to rise up. And everybody goes, wah, 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 and then he sits down and says, okay, I'll continue. And it's going on like this. I mean, we have to wonder, what is intention here? Is it to get praise from crowd, or is it to, genuinely affect people and give them what they need and what is beneficial for them, and to care about their well-being and their guidance? So we have to be careful, who we refer to. And the faqih, as Imam says, that they should not be conceited. They should not learn this knowledge just to argue with people, not to just go out and gain money or bring people to attract them to himself. If they do this, then Imam says the hellfire is their abode. So with this, I think we'll end here, inshallah, and we'll continue in this subject next week, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Jazakallah. So, inshallah, we need a 5-minute break and then we can start.
Okay, I'll be back in 5 minutes, inshallah.
Thank you.